Yippee-ki-yay! I'm gonna try doing this video fast. I shouldn't be doing it because it is 10:50 in the PM, but it's a Friday, and this is what I'm doing. I realize I just said all that before I turned on my, my actual microphone. So, here goes. I decided to do a book review video today instead of the board game video that I was going to make a couple weeks ago and scrapped the entire thing because the entire thing was just rambling nothingness and I have to script that video next time I try making it. But this one will be a little bit easier, I feel like. And I got the idea suddenly tonight because I finally finished reading a book today. Thank God, because it took me so long to finish reading this freaking book. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm not very big on books. I just, that's not something that I do. Blame it on my ADHD. Or my goldfish attention span or whatever it is. So I don't always read books, but when I do, you're gonna be very weirded out by the genre that I'm actually really into, which is self-help books, like lifestyle mentality books, or even business books. So I'm going to go over 10 books today that I have read in recent years. I'm gonna try making this video as short and sweet as possible by just reviewing and rating these books and telling you what I thought about them. So dating furthest back to when I worked at Lamb Research, this is really in my top 10. I'm gonna look like such a nerd. So I'm not all that into reading, but when I do decide that I'm gonna sit down and read a book, apparently sometimes it's about manufacturing. This book, Toyota Kata, written by Mike Rother, is about Mike's process of going to Japan and figuring out the inner workings of Toyota and how they were able to streamline their manufacturing process. I even have friggin' like sticky notes on the sections of the book that really fascinated me, and this was back when I was on the continuous improvement team at Lamb Research, and so I was really into time studies, and gosh, I'm such a freaking nerd right now. Like, part of my personality is just optimization. I really love to break things down and make the most practical, absolute best use of time, and this book really capitalizes on that with how to optimize a factory into creating sub-assemblies and outsourcing material and workflow and all that kind of stuff. Toyota Kata by Mike Rother. It's got some interesting ideas in here. I rate this book 6 out of 10 if you're into the manufacturing industry. During that time, I was also trying to be an entrepreneur of my own, start a business, maybe own a coffee shop or something. I have had so many ambitions in my life that are all dead now. This one's called Soar by T.D. Jakes. This may be a controversial subject since I don't know if he's a televangelist, but he's definitely a very, very wealthy pastor. I know that much. And this book is just about kind of, if I read it today, I might cringe a little bit more than I did when I first read it. But it was very inspirational, motivational, follow your dreams type of book. 6 out of 10. Shortly after that, I got into this book called The Influential Mind by Tali. This book is based off of a bunch of data gathered from scanning the activity in the brain when the test subject was asked certain questions or given certain materials and things like that, and it just goes over what the brain reveals about our power to change others. And that sounds kind of manipulative from the subtitle, but it's really just about how our brain responds to emotional subjects and kind of explores leadership tactics in that way. Obviously, it's not from a Christian's perspective, so it's very interesting the way that she talks about the human brain on a very, very physical level. And if you don't know this about me, I am really into psychology. If I went to school and got a degree, I'd probably have a minor in psychology if I was as interested in that back in college years as I am now. I would rate this like 7 out of 10. Very interesting. And that leads me to the next book, Gifts Differing. I've read the 120-page profiles for a lot of the Myers-Briggs 16 personality types, and this book is by Isabel Myers. So Myers-Briggs is a study of a study, essentially. Isabel Myers studied Carl Jung. Carl Jung is a Swiss psychologist that kind of coined the term introvert and extrovert, and he developed what we know today as the cognitive functions, and he created a lot of psychological structure around that. It's very, very scientific. If you want a personality test that kind of goes more bare bones than Enneagram, for instance, does, then I would take the free 16 personality type test, and then if you're more interested after you learn about your type, get Gifts Differing, because it kind of builds that bridge between all of Carl Jung's work and the generic personality test that Myers-Briggs has. This kind of fills in a lot of holes, and it gives diagrams of kind of like the cognitive functions between all those 16 types. That's really interesting stuff to me. I could talk about it for hours. 7 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. Still into psychology. So this one's called Mind Hacking by Sir John Hargrave. This one is super, super interesting. I know I've said that about all of them so far. As you can see from the cover, it kind of comes at psychology with a lot of metaphors having to do with like software. It's a lot like the Influential Mind book, but a little bit more on the metaphorical side. And he talks about practical ways to create habits. A chapter that I really like, he talks about, if you Google Benjamin Franklin's Moral Perfection Project, that's a notable part of the book, in my opinion. He talks about recognizing habits that you've created and rewiring your brain. Fascinating, eye-opening book for me. I give this one an 8 out of 10. And while I was going through the phase of reading these self-help books a couple of years back, I stumbled across, this one's very well known, so you might even have heard of it, The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. He didn't make up these ideas. He kind of just, collected them all and laid them out in a comprehensive list. I mean, depends on how you define comprehensive, because the book is like 300 pages. One of the larger books that I've invested into, but if I were to suggest someone read any book other than the Bible, it would be The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, because it just kind of opens the door to asking yourself a lot of very significant questions about your lifestyle and the systems that you develop around yourself, and just being an effective person in society, in your relationships, and in your health.
Habit 1 is be proactive. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. Habit 3, put first things first. Habit 4 is think win-win. 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit 6 is synergize. And habit 7 is encircles all of them and says sharpen the saw.
Now, those first 3 habits are in a dependence zone. So you're kind of an infant stage. You're kind of developing those and working off of other people. And in between is independence, and the latter 3 habits are interdependence, which means like the more you mature in these 7 habits, the more, so you become independent, you become self-sustaining. But then the book actually talks a lot about not only being a self-sustaining person, but being someone who can collaborate with other people and make something bigger than yourself, because you're mature enough emotionally and spiritually to kind of give other people space and to work on each other's strengths and things like that. It's a very well-rounded, very well-spoken book. I would give this one a 9 out of 10. Yeah, 9 out of 10. wouldn't be able to tell you what a 10 out of 10 book is. Probably the Bible, obviously. But, yeah, this one's pretty good. Pretty good book. After I started nerding out and talking to one of my friends about all these books that I had read in my early 20s, she recommended this book to me called The Compound Effect, written by Darren Hardy. Very short and sweet and to the point. It kind of encapsulates a lot of similar ideas as some of those previous books that I've mentioned, but comes from a perspective of someone who owns a magazine company, publisher of Success magazine. So he talks about how to be successful, and the compound effect is the theory that if you save a penny a day and allow that penny to double, by 30 days you'll have millions of dollars or something. The choices you make are an investment, and it all explodes out at some point. One of my favorite quotes from it, and I believe I wouldn't be able to find it, but he actually is quoting someone else when he says this. But the quote is something along the lines of, don't wish that things were better, wish that you were better. It's something along those lines, where basically be the change that you want to see.
You want to make the world a better place. Just look at yourself and make a change.
7 out of 10. Now, I know that I've been saying that I don't read novels, really. I mean, when I was a kid, I read Bionicle, and then I evolved into like reading Redwall books. And you'd be surprised to hear that I didn't actually get through the entirety of Chronicles of Narnia. I only read Magician's Nephew. Don't regret. But a good friend of mine told me to read this book because we had talked about spiritual warfare, and that was a long, deep conversation that I'm not going to get to on my YouTube channel, probably. But Frank Peretti is probably well known in my Christian circles, followers. This Present Darkness. Wow. I mean, I know this is fiction, but wow. I don't say this with books, but I couldn't put this down. It captivated me. It actually captivated me, and that's saying a lot, coming from someone who doesn't read fiction. It has a lot to do with just spiritual warfare and the storytelling in it, how the characters' individual storylines intertwine, and it's just a very satisfying book. The build-up is a little bit long. It's kind of a thick book, but the payoff is really nice. Excellent storytelling, I think, in my opinion. And I haven't read anything else from Frank Peretti, so if he sucks, I just like this book. Okay, 7 out of 10. Recently, I got into politics, I know, and I've listened to this guy on YouTube, whose name is Graham Allen. Pretty funny guy. As I've matured and developed my taste in politics, I can see where Graham Allen can be kind of But I got his book because I respect him just as a human. He wrote America 316, and I kind of wanted to hear him from a ex-military perspective, because I've been listening to his podcast and hearing all the references that he's made to, his past and things like that, and so I just wanted to kind of learn more about him. And he doesn't get super into politics in this book. It's just a really raw. He has a very Mississippi writing style, so it's very simple. and he said that, not me. It's as if he was talking to you. It's not like other authors would try to conjure up this linguistic masterpiece. It was definitely very, very interesting hearing his perspective and why he believes what he believes, building up to his opinion on where America is at today, not from a Republican or a conservative perspective. I mean, yes, obviously, but just from a, I think this is where we went wrong as a nation, as neighbors, as family members. Very interesting. 6 out of 10. Last but not least, Okay, this is the entire reason I made this video. This is what we've been building up to. This isn't a Raging Redhead rant. I feel kind of bad because this book was a gift to me. It was a Christmas gift. In December of 2020, my brother visited from Colorado, and his wife, loved them. She got me this book. Now, in her defense, she was on the right track. She thought that I would like the book because she knows, from what I've talked about on social media a little bit, she knows that I enjoy self-improvement type of books. And she's heard me talk about, my goals in life and what I want to do, kind of. So she was like, you know what? This sounds like an appropriate book. It's called The Quitter by Jon Acuff. Oh boy. No, honestly, I don't actually have that much to say about it. I wanted to throw the book across the room by the time I got to the end of it. Again, I feel bad because my sister-in-law had such good intentions. This guy, this Jon Acuff, I can see the comedy. I can understand why some people would believe that it's funny. I personally, the humor just went right over my head. He says a lot of words. He says so many words. I haven't read that many books, so I couldn't compare this to any other author. But I don't know how many books you've read like this, but this is one of those books that's 230 pages long, and it could have been 60. Could have been 60 pages long. What is all the other 170 pages, you may ask? I can do math. Exposition is what the other 130 pages was. So first, I should describe what the book is about. It's called Quitter. It's about quitting your day job to pursue your dream job. Yeah. And he goes over that in detail. Excruciating detail. It's a good idea, and some of the conversations that he has in the book is good for me to hear based off of where I'm at in life,
It has a lot to do with, when is the right time to quit your day job and risk your financial stability and everything to go after something that you enjoy but don't necessarily make a profit from.
That's a huge conversation and can go a lot of directions. So it's a very important subject material. However, the way this guy writes is he'll make a point, and then he says, allow me to elaborate on that point. He says, Exhibit A, and just pulls this random story out of his ear hole. But then, once he finishes the story and you think he's done, he has Exhibit B, and then pulls another random story out of his ear hole, and he's still on the same point that he was before Exhibit A. Now remember, I said that I got the point, the paragraph before he started his example. And now he's on the third example of the point that he had already made. He used to write a blog called Stuff Christians Like. I think that's his blog. That might be another book that he wrote. See, he mentioned it so many times in this book, but I just checked out. And he's a Christian, by the way, and he works for, what's his name? Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, that money guy. He will just talk and talk and talk, and there was literally a part in the last chapter of the book, he's like, even books have to come to an end. And I said, thank God books come to an end, because I'm so done with this one. Every time he would try to tell a joke or go on some long story and try making it funny, I would just sigh. Like, here we go again. Allow me to show you an example. I hate the words by now. Not separately. I've never had a problem with by when it's on its own or supporting another sentence. I have no issue with Stuff Christians Like by Jon Acuff. It performs admirably in that example. And now is a fine word too. Short, rhymes with cow. See, that's supposed to be funny, and it's just like, okay. Often, the place people encourage you to live. I got nothing but love for now. But when those two words team up and hit the town together, fist pumping and drinking the night away, they become something entirely different. They are not peanut butter and chocolate together at last. They are orange juice and gasoline, helpful in isolation, napalm collectively. The problem is that by now is a phrase we say to ourselves when we're trying to believe the lie that it's too late to start pursuing our dream. As we survey our lives and stand on the edge of the possibility cliff, we start to say things like, if I were really going to be a high school teacher by now, I would have already had a few years of teaching experience. If I were going to be a musician by now, I'd be better at the guitar. If I were going to be a pastor by now, like, we get the point. He literally goes for 2 pages just about the term by now. Like, now imagine him doing that in every paragraph. Every paragraph, he gives these like, the words by and now hitting the town together, fist pumping shots. What? Why does this guy talk so much? Listen, to a person like me, where it's already not fun to read necessarily, your writing style is so dreadfully redundant that I can't sit still. Like, by your 3rd example, I'm fidgeting so much, I just, like, I get it. Like, I pick up things really quickly, I learn really fast, but the problem is, I read really slow. And so, like, when I read over this idea that you're conveying to me, and I say, I get it, we need to move on. But then we sit there, and I have to spend the next 30 minutes, because I read really slow, reading about a concept that I understood 29 minutes ago. And I'm positive that there are far worse books out there, okay? To that I am sure, but I have not read them, and I promise I never will, because I have a hard time reading books as it is. But that being said, I'm gonna put this at a 3 out of 10. I know that's generous after how much I slammed it, but, like, I know that later I'm going to look back on this video and be like, man, it was really mean for me to just go off on that poor book. John Acuff didn't deserve that. It's just not my thing, okay? I hope you can understand, like, there's probably some of you who are familiar with John Acuff and you enjoy his writing style. I can't do that. In a book setting, that's not for me. It's not for me. 3 out of 10. Whoa! So those were some books that I've read. Obviously, those aren't the only books that I've read, so yeah.